Hey, this is Professor Homo. Welcome to our very last exercise for the Wyke dentist, and it's going to be EX12D, and we're going to be working on the hours and location. The last one we did was the testimonials page, and our final one for now is going to be hours and location, just because we don't have time for the contact us one for the moment. But we're going to do the hours and location. This one should be pretty quick because there's not a lot of content on it, but I did want you to get the experience of just working with embedding a map in there because it's fairly easy to do from Google. And also we're going to make some special classes in here that's going to allow this to align left and align right within the same paragraph. So a couple interesting things we'll do in here, but again, very short, so it won't take you that long to do, just a couple little sections here. And I just want to point this out, and I'll even show you some of the CSS here. Now some of it's the same. There's an H1 tag which we're just going to change. So we're going to have like a new article, and this one will be like article hours. It'll have an article hours H1, which will be the same. It'll have an article hours. There's no H2 here, so we don't even have to worry about that. There's a article P, which will just be the paragraph. And then there's also a new article P, which will modify slightly. We'll give it a class name, and it'll basically have a bottom border of a blue border. It'll be indented a little bit, and then it'll also have a class within these times. Will actually have a class in them so they can align right. And I'll just show you the code for that. If I go into the CSS for that, I'll go to the article hours code for that I've already done, and you can see article hours, we just changed that, the H1. The H2, not even going to need, so we're not going to have to do that. Articles P, that won't change. There's just a couple new ones here. There's one called article hours P.days, and that means there's a class called days, and all that has is a bottom border and a margin left. And it also has a width of 50%. So this has a width of 50%. It has a margin left. And it also has a bottom border. So that's what that paragraph is going to have, or all these paragraphs. There's 4 paragraphs. This office hours one will be a little bit different because it won't have that bottom border on it, and we'll probably just give that a margin left. We might even do an inline style. I think that's what I did for that, just an inline style, just to show you how to do an inline style right in the HTML code. And then for our bottom part, this map here, it's just an embedded map that actually pastes an iframe in there. It embeds an iframe right into the page. Now it has a set size to begin with, so we're going to have to tweak it a little bit when it gets responsive, because you can see it stays the same size. And then for our media queries, it's going to start to scale, and eventually we're just going to make it 100%. So you know, it'll look like that in the end. So that's all we're going to have to do. So this won't take that long to do this, but there'll be a couple little CSS things that will work with on this. It's going to work the same way. You're going to make a new file, and I'll go into. You're going to make a new file. You're going to save it and call it hours.html, and you're going to copy the HTML, and then you're going to start tweaking it. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, what I did here was open up my folder for EX12. And it's probably the last one you had open, so you're not really going to have to maybe open it again unless you're opening different folders in brackets. We're going to be using the same CSS file, so we're going to keep adding to it when we work on this. And the last one I have here is the testimonials one. I'll use that one first. I'll actually just click on testimonials. I'll right-click and do new file, and I'll just call it hours.html, and there'll be nothing in it. So I'll just go to testimonials, and I'll copy everything, and I'll do an edit copy. I'll do a Command A to copy everything, or Control A, and then I'll go back to hours and I'll paste it, a Command V or Control V, and everything will be the same. And then just so you're sure, we did call it, it was called hours.html, so it'll already be linked. Okay, so now when it pasted this, it put all our block quote stuff in there, so I'm going to remove all the block quote. I'm even going to remove the link that goes to the top, so I'll take that out. So the only thing I'll leave in here is the H1, and I don't need the top, so I could just call it an H1, and it'll just be called hours. And there will be another H1 that'll be called location, but I'll do that after this. We'll have H1 hours, and then also this article ID, as long as I'm in here, I'm going to call this hours. So that should be set up to put in our new content. Now there's not a lot of content to put in here that we're going to copy and paste, so this shouldn't take long. So I'm going to go to my Word file, and I'm going to look for the one that has hours and locations, I think it's called. And this is the only thing here, so I'll just copy this code that's here. We may have to tweak it a little bit, and I'll go back to brackets, and right after the H1 I'll paste it Now I can remove hours because that's actually in the H1. So I'll remove that. And then some of the other things I'll do in here is I'll put P tags in here because it didn't put P tags. Office hours got bumped up here, so I'll cut that and move it below the Thursday one, and we'll tweak that later. You can move any extra space. So, and then I'll put closing P around that. This will also have a P tag. And just to make things quicker, if you want to copy, if you're putting a lot of tags, you can copy and paste them. So I'll paste all these opening tags before the days of the week, and then I'll put my closing tags. Okay, so I have all my P tags in here. Also, location is going to get an H1, so I'll put an H1 in there for location, because that's going to be the heading of the next one where we put that map, and maybe I'll just put a return here just to separate it. So that's what I have so far. And again, just to take a look at this one, this is kind of what we're working with, and you can see it has a line underneath. We're going to indent it a little. They didn't indent it, but we are. And we're not going to put the map on the side because we have that kind of side panel kind of navigation there. So we're going to just put the map down here, which will be fine. So that's what we're going to do next, but we're going to make a little style here for these days of the week so that we can put the border, we can indent it, and it'll be a little different than the paragraph above. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go back. Now we already have all our code in here that we need, except we're going to target this, and I'm just going to give it a class. I'm going to just say P class equals, and we'll just call it days. That sounds fine because that's what it's going to be. And then once I do that once, I'll just copy it and paste it to the others. And I'm not going to put it for this one because I'm going to do an inline style for that one, and I'll do that a little later. So as long as we have this class called days, let's go make a style for it. And actually we have to make a style for a couple of these things here for hours. So let's go and do that. We've been doing that with the other pages, so we'll go and copy. I'll copy all these. The last ones I did were testimonials, it looks like here. So I'll copy these 3 from testimonials. Just to start, do I have a paragraph? Actually, let me copy these from, because I didn't use a paragraph in testimonial, so let me copy the meat ones. I'll copy all of these for now, just through, so I have the paragraph in there, and I'll put these at the bottom, and it's after my article test one, so I'll paste these in here, and right away, before I forget, I'll just call them hours. So that's the H1, and it looks like I forgot one again. I forgot the very first one, the one that has the width and the float, so let me copy that and put it back before the H1. So I'll call that hours. And I have that hours. The H1 will stay the same. H2 we don't need, so I'll just delete this. H3 I don't need, so I'm going to delete that. And for now, I have the paragraph one. I'm going to keep that for now. I'm going to keep the hours. And now that I have those 3 right now, the H1, the main kind of element one, I'm actually going to make one for the class. So I'm just going to copy this, the previous one, and I'll paste it. And I've been using the full name, so I'm just going to call it p.days, because that means it'll be the paragraph with the class name days. And what I'm going to put in here is I'm just going to do a border. First of all, I'll do border, and you can add 3 elements to border, and one of them is thickness, which can be like 1 pix. The other one is style, which could be solid, and the other one is color, which I'm going to copy the color, the blue color. I'll just copy this right here, and I'll use that as the color. And notice they don't have commas; they just get spaces. When you have just like padding and margin, you just put a space between them. So when you could do border bottom or whatever it is, and actually it's going to be, it should be border bottom, because this would be all around. So it's going to be border bottom, and I forgot to do that because it's just going to be below. So it's going to be border bottom. It's going to be, but the three kind of properties you could put in there are going to be the thickness, which is 1 pixel, solid, that's the style, and then also the color. So I'll put that in there, and I'll see what it looks like. And what it looks like so far, it's actually putting something above that one. It's putting a border above. So I got to make sure I didn't accidentally give that one a a class of days, because that one should not have a class of days. But these, we're going to shorten these. We're going to give it a width. Maybe we'll give it a 6. We did it 50% on the other one, and we're going to indent it a little bit. Okay, so we have to go back and do that. So we're going to fix up our CSS, and I could see this one should not have, the first one should not have a class of days. It's just a regular paragraph, so I'll take that out, and then I'll go to my CSS, and what I'm going to do to modify this P days, not only will it have a border below, it'll have a margin left, and I'll just give it like a 1em to start, like 16, that'll be like 16 pixels, so I'll do that to start, and then I'm also going to give it a width, so that class will actually have a width within there, and I'll give it like a 60%. I think I did it 50%, but I'll try it 60% and see how that works. And I'll save that, and I'll take a look at it, and this should look better, and that looks good. I think that looks pretty good. We got to move office hours over, and I'm going to do that a different way. What I'll do, instead of making a style for that, which I could, I'm going to go into my hours HTML, and I'm just going to do an inline style. And if you've never, I don't even know if we've done an inline style, but you could go right inside the tag. The way you could put the style inside the P is just say P style equals, and then in quotes, you just put the same kind of style that you would in a style sheet. And it just does it within the HTML tag. It's not very efficient if you had to do that more than once, but just for a one-off time to do this, you could just put P style is, or P style equals, and just put margin, and you would write it just like you would a style. You'd put this, you would put a colon, and actually it would be margin left, and then you put a colon, and then we'll just put 1em, and then you put a semicolon, and that all goes inside of quotes. So it's just a way of embedding an inline style right inside there. So anytime you can't use style sheets or anything like that, or you can't put styles in a head tag, you could put it right in your HTML. I do that for e-learning. You can do it in Blackboard if you ever need styles in anywhere where you just have HTML. So that's what I'm going to do for that. And then you can also, I'll give it another style. I'll put font style. If I want to make it italic, instead of using I tags, I'll just do font style, and I'll do a colon, and I'll just do italic, because that's the style for italic, and I'll do a semicolon. So that will, you can put multiple styles inside here inline, as long as you separate them with a semicolon, just like you would when you do styles in here. So it does the same thing, it just puts them all in a quote inline. It's not very efficient, and it makes the code look kind of sloppy, but just for a one-shot time to do this, we'll do it like that and just see what it looks like, especially if you haven't done that before. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go back and refresh it and see what it looks like. And there, it moved that over, and it gave it italic. So it used that style just one time. Now if I have to update the style, I have to do it, within that HTML tag. It won't update with my CSS styles. So this looks okay. That's actually what I want. And you can see this will get a little smaller, but it's not complete. You can see we have some issues with the float and all that. So one other thing I'm going to do is I want to actually make this align right. I want to make these things align right. Now, how do you make something align right in the same paragraph? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to do a class. So we're going to go inside here, and we're going to do, we're going to put a span around the days. So I'm just going to put a span here and say class equals, and I'm just going to call it a right. I'll call it a right for align right, just to make it a little shorter. So it's class equals a right. I'll close up the span tag, or I'll close up the opening tag, and then I'll put a closing span tag. And what that does is it puts, and I put it in the wrong place, so let me cut this out of here, and it's just going around the times. So it's just going around the times, and maybe I'll just call it times. That might be a better, because I have days and I have times. That actually makes more sense. So I'm going to do that. Span class equals times, and then the times will be aligned right. So then I'm going to copy these, and I won't record that. So let me just copy these, and I'll paste it to all the others. Okay, I pasted all those. So let me just save and see what it looks like. And guess what? It's not going to look like anything, because it just has a span on it. So I didn't apply any kind of span yet. But what I'm going to do is go to my CSS, and I'll do one more. I have articles, hours, p.days, and what I'm going to do is do another one, and I'll copy and paste that one, and it's p.days, but it's actually also getting, it's a span that's inside there. So instead of making it p.times, it's going to be inside p.days. So that's why I actually want to put dot times here, so that it's actually that span that's inside of p.days. Now you could try and see if it works by just using p.times. It may work okay, but I want to, because it's still going inside the paragraph. So, but I'm going to do this just to make sure that it's the class that's inside of this class that's inside of that class. So that's what I'm doing. You could try it another way, but this would be a kind of longer but more formal way to do it. Now, I don't need a border bottom in there, so I'm going to take that out. I don't need a margin left because it'll already take that from the previous one, but I am going to do a float right, because it will not just align it right. If you try just doing a line right, it won't work. You got to float it just like you would put, and it's floating inline. So this isn't separate items like we do two columns where you got to do the one float left and the other float right. This is like when you put a picture inside a paragraph and you just say float right, it'll just kind of float it to the right within that paragraph. So I'm going to put a float right, and then I'll just replace these last two and just put text align, and I'll do text align right. And it made it align right. And if you want that shorter, I can make it 50%, but that looks okay right now. We'll see how it looks when I eventually this is it's gonna snap anyway, but other than the issue of the floating of that pink sidebar, I think it looks okay. So that stuff looks okay right now, and everything in there. So the hours part looks okay. So what I'll do is I'll take a break here with what I've done, and then we'll finish up with just the map part and just the responsive part, and we'll be all done with this.